Hey, what's up? Zach here, and today I've got Gordon Hayward's newest signature shoe, the Anta GH4. Here we go. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the GH4 is the silhouette of the uppers and just how low the lace line is, kind of how sleek it is, but it also does have, pretty high-backed heel counter. Now, this is another kind of callback to motorsport. However, it does make the shoe a lot more slick and as well as a lot more intimate feeling on your foot. Now, that also has a lot to do with the actual lace line itself. This is one of the most innovative lace lines I have seen in recent memory, and it does do a very nice job of giving you a super glove-like fit in a shoe that is a super low-top shoe, especially from kind of the midpoint of the ankle on. And how this lace line works is so cool. Number one, it actually has lace eyelet stays here in the ankle collar here where the last eyelet is. And when you pull it, this last tab actually pinches down on the lace and holds your tension for you, which is, phenomenal if you're someone that hates lace memory on your shoes and has a really hard time getting them locked in. As soon as you lock all the laces down, it'll just automatically keep the tension for you, which I love. The next thing is it has what they call this harness line, but to me it's like a slip knot. It's almost like the one in the Asics Gel Resolution 8 and 9 on the tennis space. But what it is number one, the lace eyelets cross the shoe. So you have bands crossing the tongue, which means there's already some inherent tension on the tongue holding you in. But then they go into these outrigger lace eyelets, but those outrigger lace eyelets are also then wrapped with these wires that go into the strobo board. So every time you're tying the shoe, each strand that you pull is actually pulling, number one, the shoe closer together, but also the strap that goes across the shoe, as well as those tines that go into the strobo board. So it's kind of enveloping you almost like a Venus flytrap would. And it is such a cool feeling. It is definitely a very intimate feeling with the uppers of the shoe on your foot, as well as the sidewalls of the shoe on your foot. So if you do have lumps and bumps on your foot, it might annoy you a little bit. But in terms of lockdown for a shoe with this low of a profile, does not get any better. And the next thing you'll notice is this really slick, almost hot rod looking paneling on the uppers of the shoes. Has one little breathing channel right here, which is pretty interesting. Then it does have all this TPU meshing here on the medial and lateral sides where you're going to produce the most heat. Now, if you look at the breathability test on these things, heated up 142.2 degrees, cooled down 47.8. Now, for a shoe with this much paneling and overlaying on it, to me that was pretty good. Where I noticed the most escape of air, number one, was over the tongue. This tongue is super thin and meshed out, as well as in the meshing here on the medial and lateral sides. The shoe is just pulling air all the way out from over there. So even though the shoe does have a lot of paneling in it, there are still escape points. And I actually did put my finger over this little hole here, almost like a blowhole for a whale. And there was air coming out. There was hot air coming out. That was pretty interesting. And it also has a little breathing back here in the heel. I couldn't really feel it because the heat gun was pointing this way, but it does breathe there. I would say for a summer shoe outdoors, it's definitely going to let go of a decent amount of heat. And that also brings me to today's sponsor, which is one of the most breathable orthotics you can get on the market, which is the PowerStep Pinnacle Breeze. And with the real interesting breathing capabilities of the GH4, I thought the PowerStep Pinnacle Breeze would be a really good match for the GH4. And what I love about the Pinnacle Breeze is, number one, you know if you've watched this channel at all how much I love the arch coverage that PowerStep Pinnacle has. It has the best support of any over-the-counter orthotic on the market. It has the most broad arch support and the most strong and stout. But with the PowerStep Breeze, you're also getting this really durable mesh on the top of it, over top of the first layer of padding. And that really allows a lot of airflow right where all those pores and just all those blood vessels are going to be, which are releasing the most heat on your foot. Remember, you lose a ton of heat off of the bottom or plantar side of your foot. And so if you have this meshing here on the underside of the orthotic, it's going to allow that air to breathe through the orthotic and then out through some of the meshing vents like you would see in a shoe like the GH4. I'd say especially with spring and summer coming up and the super hot weather, especially we're having even already, if you're outdoors at all, this is going to save you a lot of athlete's foot, a lot of sweating in your shoe, and just kind of a lot of misery as well. So if you want to pick up a pair of these, I will leave a link in the description below. And on the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, the burr does get through that paneling layer. However, it does not get into the meshing underneath of it. I think on a really gritty outdoor asphalt court, you might start to see some wear on this. However, especially on indoor hardwood, this is so slick, I don't think you're going to get enough friction to burn through it. Now, getting into the midsole teardown on the GH4, an entire slab of that nitrogen-infused TPU foam, which is just unbelievable feeling underfoot in terms of the springiness that it feels like underfoot. It's the same as in the Anta KT8, that feeling you get, just a super lively feeling underfoot. Now, these shoes, which we'll get in the fit section though, they fit a little bit long and they have a really wide flange on them. You kind of sink into this lateral TPU stabilizer when you're pushing off side to side. side. So the shoe does still feel really stable side to side, but it has almost like that real streamlined, springy, bouncing feeling. It almost feels like what the Vaporfly Next Percent would feel like if it was a basketball shoe, if kind of wrap your head around that concept. I know they don't really have anything to do with each other, but just kind of the feeling you get when you're going front to back on these, but they also have the side to side stability. Now, the next thing you have is a bottom loaded shank here. And I thought this little gold coin here was just window dressing. However, it is a decently stiff shank. I mean, it's not the stiffest thing out there. It has a little flexibility, but it is still pretty stout. Now, it is bottom loaded. The one thing though is with nitrogen infused foams, we were talking about this in the members only video. And if you want to see these teardowns extended cut with more commentary to them, a little bit more loose format, and like I said, the entire teardown from stem to stern, I will leave that link in the description below. However, with these nitrogen infused foams, a lot of them are a little bit more durable now, and they don't need a shank so much to kind of keep the resilience of the foam. Now, you still need a shank if you want that diving board effect, if you want that spring leaf type effect. So I mean, shanks are still obviously, you know, a huge asset to shoot. You still need them. It's just that you don't need sometimes the super stiff shank to hold the foam up if you're using this kind of foaming technique. A lot more durable, as well as a lot more of a lively type foam. If you look at the single leg jump height test on these, and I'm even going through a little bit of patellar tendinitis, still got 22 centimeters on that. Maybe I shouldn't be doing that test, but I got 22 centimeters of single leg jump height on these. And then if you look at the bounce height test on these, got 39 centimeters in the heel and got 45 centimeters in the forefoot. I mean, that's akin to Zoom Air. And that's because all that nitrogen in there, there's just so much tension of air and nitrogen in the bubbles of this foam here that it produces results like Zoom Air would. And getting into the outsole tread of the GH4s, once again, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's this really chunky, almost razor herringbone, a little bit wider set there. You do get some circling here in the heel. And then what I like is you actually get a pivot point all the way up here where your pad of your big toe would go. And that pivot point up here underneath your big toe is a really nice feature because when you're bending that back knee down really low, or you're trying to push off or just trying to get really low, almost like trying to disguise what position you're gonna take or what direction you're going to go, or you're just trying to get a really hard push off when you're driving to the net. A lot of times, like I said, that big toe is gonna be on the ground, and having a pivot point right there is just a nice little touch, and this gives you maybe that little bit of an extra grip. And if you look at the speed ratio of the GH4, came in at 2.82, which is a really nice bounce to weight ratio of these shoes. It just shows that they do give you just that little bit more spring back. And I just noticed kind of in the wild with these shoes, having them on my foot, they are really streamlined. They are a little bit more of a slick type shoe from getting down one end of the court to the other. And if you are someone that is playing smaller power forward, you are driving to the hoop and need to create some speed very quick, this is a nice shoe to have where it's very unencumbering. But also for, you know, Gordon Hayward specifically, I think there's some other design things in this shoe that make it really good for his foot and kind of his game. However, if you look at the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, the burr does start to get through this a little bit, a millimeter of damage on about 2 millimeter tread depth. So like I said, these definitely can be used outdoors, and especially for the protection that they offer with the nitrogen infused foam. Especially if you're putting orthotic in there, you know, they're going to protect you against those outdoor courts, those really unforgiving asphalt and concrete courts. Just like I said, if you're someone that shuffles a lot, creates a lot of heat under there, these aren't going to be as durable as some other shoes, a little bit of a harder rubber compound. And getting into the fit of the GH4s, now number one, they do fit a little bit long. Like I said, these are a little bit more of a lengthy shoe, and that's because Gordon Hayward's, you know, a tall, big dude. He's like, what, 6'7", 225, something like that. So I mean, he is a big dude, and so especially with him, when you're driving front to back a lot, the shoe does need to kind of fit your body, right? So the shoe's going to be a little bit longer, give him a little bit more stability underfoot. You know, he shouldn't be in a shoe kind of like almost like the Kyries, right, where they're a little bit stubbier, they're a little bit more wide set, low to the ground, whereas these are a little bit longer to accommodate kind of his body type and his game style. Now, in terms of width, it doesn't matter because of this harness line here. You know, a narrow medium foot, they'll suck you down into the shoe so you can go true to size. But I probably would try to go down a half size if you are narrow, just because of the length of the shoe. I noticed with my 2E with foot, I didn't have problems per se, but like I said, it just fit me a tad long. So if you're a 2E, I wouldn't be going up sizes because they're just going to be way too long for you. Same with a 4E. So I'm not so sure they're the best for a 4E type foot. However, if you're somebody with bunion, Taylor's bunion, you just have to watch because one of those tines might be right over it and be uncomfortable. So I'd say these are much more of a streamlined shoe, maybe more of a streamlined foot. That being said, I didn't have any cramping in these after I got used to that lace line, but initially they did feel pretty tight. But in terms of the snake bitten foot, in terms of someone that is, chronic ankle sprainer, instability, because like I said, they hug you so well and because of the lateral stability on these, they really are fantastic. Heel pain, tendonitis, ball of foot pain. Remember that foam is super forgiving and it's really bouncy as well as shock absorbing, like we saw earlier in the video with the bounce to shock absorb ratio. They kind of can do the best of both worlds. They're one of the few foams that can do it that well, kind of hit that middle spot. So really anything snake bitten on the bottom of your foot, I think are really good. Like I said, especially because they lock you down so well. And in terms of the all-important playability and why these are the signature shoe of Gordon Hayward, they are meant for a pretty tall, pretty powerful, no pun intended, power or small forward, someone that is going to be driving north to south more than they're going east to west. Now, the thing is, they are stable enough to make those moves side to side. It's just, like I said, the shoe is a little bit long, so they're not going to be as nimble going side to side as some others. That being said, if you're bringing the power and the force to these, they are going to be stable enough for you to do just about whatever you want to do. And I think for someone that is going up in the air all the time, trying to go up for dunks or for a rebound, trying to get offensive boards, I think that, if you're going up and down a lot, these are going to protect the bottom of your foot really well. So someone with that kind of game is really going to benefit from these. I think the biggest selling point in these, though, is just the security and the stability for a shoe that's this streamlined, especially because we barely talked about the outrigger heel counter here, which also provides a ton of support and a ton of stability side to side. And if you look at the back of the shoe here, this thing does have a little bit of a rocker on the back. The only thing that doesn't make it unstable, though, is that outrigger heel counter and all that foaming around the heel. We kind of sink into it. So remember, these aren't meant for speed front to back with the rocker, the streamlined design. So I think if you're that type of player, you're going to absolutely love them. You're really going to like the tools that they give your foot. Just remember, they're not the Wave Weight 808. They're not the Air Del Dawn. They're just not meant for that kind of footwork. That they are much more meant for kind of, like I said, a powerful power or small forward. So I would love to hear your thoughts on these down below. If you're looking to pick up a pair of these shoes that do really good going coast to coast on the court, I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And if you want to see another sibling to the Anta GH4, an absolute beast of a shoe itself, the Anta KT8, go under the knife. Make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. And thanks to PowerStep for sponsoring this video. Respect your rubber and foam. See you in the next one.